The prairie stretched endlessly, golden waves of grass dancing under the breath of the wind. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across a small wooden ranch that stood alone in the heart of nowhere. Inside that quiet home lived Clara Mae Dalton, the cowgirl everyone had once known, and long since forgotten. Clara wasn't old, not yet, but her eyes carried the kind of stillness that only time and loss could teach. Her hands were rough from years of rope and reins, her back bent from labor, and her heart, though tired, was still kind. For 20 years she had lived alone on the Dalton Ranch, a stretch of dry land left behind by her parents after the drought took the cattle and hope along with them. She had once been the girl everyone came to when a horse was sick, when a storm hit, or when a stranger needed a place to rest. But time has a cruel habit of erasing the names of good people. The town changed, faces changed, and Clara became just another story whispered about, that lonely cowgirl out by Dry Creek. Every morning she saddled her mare, Dusty, and rode to check the fences, talk to the wind, and watch the horizon. It was her only companion now. And though she never said it aloud, she still hoped, foolishly, quietly, that one day someone would ride up that long dirt road again. It had been years since the last traveler came through. But one winter night, when the moon hung cold and high, a soft sound broke the silence, hoofs. Clara froze by the window. The world outside was washed in silver light. There, stumbling through the snow, was a young man, barely more than a boy, half-conscious, bleeding, and clutching his side. She rushed out, coat flapping behind her, and caught him before he fell from his horse. "Hey there, you're all right now," she said, her voice steady but urgent. His eyes fluttered open. They were chasing us, my brothers, please." Then he passed out. Clara didn't ask questions. She dragged him inside, stoked the fire, and cleaned the wound that cut deep through his ribs. She worked through the night, wrapping his bandages, whispering to him like a mother would to a frightened child. When he woke again, he told her his name, Eli Redfeather. He was Apache. His brothers had been ambushed by raiders near the canyon. She didn't know whether to believe him or not, but kindness doesn't ask for proof. For 3 days, she fed him, tended to him, and when he was strong enough to ride, she sent him off with a blanket, food, and a promise. "Go find your brothers. Tell them the world still has good in it." Eli looked back at her, his eyes full of something unspoken. "If I live, I'll never forget this, Miss Clara. But people forget. Seasons passed, and no one came. The grass grew high, then brown. Clara's hair turned from sun gold to silver. Years rolled by like tumbleweeds, silent, aimless, empty. She had saved that boy because it was what her heart told her to do, not because she expected thanks. But sometimes, when the nights got too long, and the wind whispered through the broken fence, she wondered if he'd made it home, or if the prairie had claimed him, like so many before. One autumn evening, as the sky burned in orange and red, Clara rode out to mend a broken post. A storm was coming. She could feel it in her bones. The wind picked up, carrying a strange scent, smoke. She turned and saw it, a fire near the old canyon. Her heart jumped. That was miles away from town. Nobody should be there. She rode fast, Dusty galloping over dry earth and roots, until she reached the ridge. Below her, she saw a camp, tents scattered, horses tied, men and women moving about. They weren't settlers. They were natives, Apache. And then she saw him, a tall man with a feathered braid, strong, calm, commanding. When he turned, the firelight caught his face. It was Eli. He saw her too. For a heartbeat, time stood still. Then he smiled, slow, certain, filled with memory. "Miss Clara," he said softly, like a name he had carried in his heart for a lifetime. She didn't know what to say. "You're alive," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "Because of you," he replied. They talked until the night grew cold. He told her how he had found his people, how her kindness had saved not just him but his brothers, how that night had changed the course of their tribe. "You reminded us," he said, "that compassion still lives beyond the line that divides us." When she left that night, her heart felt warm again. She didn't know it would be the last time she saw him. Years passed again. Clara grew older, slower, her hands stiffer. She stopped riding long distances. The fences broke more often than she could fix them. The town forgot she was even there. Then came the drought, the worst one yet. For weeks, not a drop of rain. The well ran dry, the cattle died, and the world seemed to shrink around her. One night, she sat on her porch, staring at the stars that looked so close, yet so far. "Guess this is it," she murmured. "Ain't much left to do but wait." But fate had other plans. Just before dawn, a sound broke through the stillness, drumming. Faint at first, then stronger. She thought she was dreaming. Then came the sound of hooves, many of them. She stepped outside, and her lantern flickered in the cold air. Across the field, through the mist, 10 riders emerged, wrapped in leather and feathers, their horses painted for ceremony. They stopped at her gate, silent and proud, like ghosts from another world. The one in front dismounted. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that gleamed with deep respect. He placed his hand on his chest and bowed. "Miss Clara Dalton," he said. Her voice trembled. "That's me." He nodded. "We owe you our lives." Before she could answer, he gestured behind him. The riders opened their packs and began unloading water skins, food, blankets, and wood. They moved like a small army, silent and disciplined. Within minutes, they had built a fire in her yard, filled her barrels with clean water, and set a fresh mare in her corral. Clara stood frozen. "I don't understand." The leader smiled. "You saved our brother, Eli Redfeather. Years ago, when no one else would." She covered her mouth, her eyes filling. "You knew him. He was our chief," the man said quietly. "He passed to the Great Spirit last winter. His last words were, 'Find her. Help her. Tell her we never forgot.'" Her knees gave way, and she sank to the porch steps, sobbing into her hands. The men bowed their heads in silence. When she looked up again, the sky was glowing with the first light of morning. The world felt alive again, like it had been waiting for this moment. For the next few days, the Apache men stayed on her land. They repaired her fences, dug her a new well, and built a shelter for her animals. They spoke little, but their actions said everything. Clara watched them work, her heart swelling with a peace she hadn't felt in years. One evening, as the sun sank over the horizon, she sat by the fire with them. The leader handed her a small leather pouch. Inside was a turquoise pendant, simple, hand-carved, shaped like a feather. "This was Eli's," he said. "He wore it the night you saved him. He wanted you to have it." Clara held it close to her chest. "He remembered me all this time. He never forgot," the man said. "And neither will we." After they left, Clara hung the pendant by her window, where the morning light touched it every day. The ranch no longer felt empty. Every breeze that swept across the prairie carried whispers of gratitude, of friendship that had survived the years and distance. And when people from town finally came out, curious about the new well, the restored fences, the mysterious riders, they found the old cowgirl sitting on her porch, smiling quietly at the horizon. They asked her what had happened, and she simply said, "Just some friends keeping a promise." In the weeks that followed, word spread. Folks who'd forgotten her name began to remember again. They brought her supplies, fixed her roof, and sometimes stayed to hear her stories. But the story they loved most was the one about the boy she saved, the one who grew up to be a chief, who never forgot the kindness of a lonely cowgirl on a cold winter's night. And in her final years, when she looked out over her land, green again after the rains returned, she felt no loneliness anymore. The world had given back what she'd once given to it: compassion, respect, and love. Because kindness, she finally understood, never truly disappears. It just rides far and wide, until the day it finds its way home again.